The primordial secret of the Arctic, of the ancient Hyperborea, where ancient Greek texts say the Atlanteans used to live, the forgotten novel. It's very characteristic that in a whole group of very recent researchers on prehistory, ancient ideas, which until recently were considered as simple mythology, are re-emerging. One of these ideas refers to the primitive legendary country of the far north, Hyperborea, with great reservation as to the supposed certainty that in prehistory only ape humanity lived. Having today revoked this idea, we come to address the problem of origin with a new and unprejudiced view of various researchers as a working case, quote unquote, as a symbolic spiritual reality to achieve a great historical composition, and we end up with suspecting that even the Stone Age witnesses an authentic superior culture. The ancients had very advanced technology. The primordial homeland of the prehistoric Europeans, highly civilized, so much so that it was considered divine by the ancients, would indeed be the Arctic, the North Pole, the mythical far north, or Hyperborea. The paradoxical appearance of this argument disappears as soon as we remember what physics teaches us about the phenomena that come from the so-called equinox transition. Kindly support my Patreon account since YouTube has again demonetized my YouTube channel. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below. Due to the inclination of the Earth's axis, from time to time a change of the Earth's climate is produced. As fossil coal has been discovered beneath the polar ice caps, this means that at one time there were forests and fires in this zone. The cooling did not affect the Arctic until later. One of the names of Asgard, the house of the gods, and home to the northern royal families, is, according to the Scandinavian tradition, Green Island or Greenland, in modern German Grunland, from where we get the name Greenland. But this land, as its name implies, even until the Gothic years, seemed to have a rich vegetation and had not yet been paid for by the freezer. In other words, it wasn't frozen glaciers, it was in fact green with vegetation. But there's more. In the Arctic ice region, recent expeditions by Jeannes of Canada, Rasmussen and Terkel of Denmark, and Burkitt Smith of the United States have produced unique archaeological finds. Deep beneath the ice, remains of much higher culture have been found, that of the Eskimos and remnants of even more ancient prehistoric layers. This culture has been given the name the Thule culture, Thule, the Thule. Thule is the name given by the Greeks, exactly in an area or on an island in the far north, which is often confused with the lands of the far north, from where the solar Apollo will come, that is one of the ancient Greek gods, Apollo, the god of the Doric Achaean tribes, who indeed they said it descended from the north, Hyperborea, to come to Greece. And Plutarch says of Thule that in it for about a month the night lasts only 2 hours. It is the white night of the northern countries. Because other Greek traditions call the Arctic Sea Koronia Thalassa, that is the Sea of Saturn, this is an important indication, as Saturn was perceived as one of the gods of the Golden Age and Primordial Age, the first age of mankind, according to ancient Greek mythology. Now, if we go to America, we'll find correspondences in the Aztec cultures of Mexico so unique that they eventually extend to the names. Indeed, the ancient Mexicans called their ancient homeland Tlapalan, Tulan, and also Tula, the Greek Thule. Just as Greek was associated with the solar Apollo, so here the Mexican Tula was considered the house of the sun. But let us compare these Mexican traditions with those of the Celts, the Celts. If the distant ancestors of the Mexicans had come to America from a North Atlantic land, here are the Irish legends about the divine race of Tuatha de Danann, who came to Ireland from the west from a secret Atlantic or North Atlantic land, Avalon. We would therefore say two forms of the same memory. The two civilizations correspond to two photovoltaics, one America, the other European, coming from a single center, from a site that has disappeared, the myth of Atlantis, or rather icy. But there is something more, in the sense that if we move into the field of modern positive research, we will find evidence that could very well agree with these resonances of legends. In fact, on the European Atlantic coast, mainly the so-called Magdalene culture, there are clear traces of an authentic civilization and a type of humanity, the so-called Cro-Magnon man, which show an evolution much higher than almost animal races, than the inhabitants of Europe who were called Icemen or Mustard Man. The surviving fragments of this civilization are of such a nature as to allow researchers to claim that the Cro-Magnon men may well be called the Greeks of the Stone Age. Once upon a time, this Cro-Magnon tribe mysteriously appeared during the Stone Age along the Atlantic coast among the lower and almost ape-like tribes. Could it not be the same case with the Tuatha de Danann, with the divine race that came from the mysterious North Atlantic, that of the relevant Irish legends, and the myths about the struggles between the divine tribes, quote-unquote, that suddenly arose and the tribes of demons or monsters that could not be interpreted perhaps as imaginary echoes of the great struggle that took place between these two races, between the people of Cro-Magnon, of the Greeks of the Stone Age, and the animalistic people of Musteria. Returning to traditional memories, not only ancient Greeks and Americans remember a primitive Arctic cradle. According to the Iranian memoirs of the Avesta, the original and secret homeland of the Aryans, perceived as the, quote, first creation of the god of light, and, quote, the Arianem Vaejo, was a country in the far north, and is still called that in it when winter began. It lasted for 10 months of the year, just as in the Arctic. It's therefore a very accurate recollection of glaciers, as was the case with the transition from the equator to the Arctic, a recollection which, however, coincides with the terrible winter of Fibul, which unfolds at the end of a certain cycle or of the world, as described in the ancient Scandinavian traditions. But even in India, they remember an island, a land of light, situated in the far north, a Sveta Dvipa, White Island or Glorious Island, and a tribe in the far north, the Uttarakura. The same memory they have in Tibet, the legend of the secret city of the north, Shambhala. In the far east, Li Chi narrates the tradition of land located, quote, in the northernmost parts of the North Sea and inhabited by transcendental people, end quote. So we can continue with many other references so consistent that we wonder if the presence of the common theme between peoples so different and distant from each other is due only to luck. So far, though, the traditional memories, it's precisely these ideas that have incorporated today into a truly mammoth scientific research, which brings together a general set of findings and specific research, such as those of Frobenius Hermann, the karstic rocks, etc. Its purpose is to strengthen the question of common origin, we intend to talk about the work inaugurated by the scientist Herman Wirth, precisely in the dawn of humanity, correlation pun with the titles of Wirth's first book, Der Aufgang der Menschheit, written in 1928. Here we are dealing with neither with a theosophist nor with a fantasy amateur, but with a technician whose experience in the fields of philosophy, anthropology, paleography, and related fields can indeed not be questioned. In short, the results of Wirth's research are exactly this: that in ancient prehistory, around 20,000 BC, a large united white race worshipped the sun, moved from the polar region that became uninhabited due to glaciers to the south, in Europe and America, but especially in the extinct land located in the North Atlantic. This race then moved from this land during the Paleolithic period to Europe and Africa in one movement from west to east. It will then penetrate the Mediterranean basin, creating a circle of prehistoric civilizations closely intertwined, which will be shaped into Egyptian, Etruscan, Pelasgian, etc., not to mention the many others that will be founded by new waves. Their course from the mainland eventually reached the Caucasus and beyond to India and China itself. Thus, what is supposed to be the cradle of humanity, the Pamir Plateau, would be just one of several recent radiation centers of a much more ancient race. The Aryan and Indo-Germanic tribes and the European man, quote-unquote, in general the Homo europaeus, in general, are already derivative descendants and to some extent already mixed, compared to the older and pure far north fractions to which memory symbols refer, even the prehistoric petroglyphs about foreign conquerors with the big ships, with the axe, the sun, the solar man, with the raised arms. A mysterious unit thus encloses a group of great civilizations and ancient religions which flourished where, until yesterday, the animal man of the caves was supposed to have lived. In short, this is the strange and fascinating concept which, passing through the world of myth, now returns to the light. The Arctic is the home of humanity, as well as culture, in the highest sense of the word solar. And once a symbol, it becomes a symbol again, finally, to remember that. Even in Roman times, the idea of the northern region as a secret country inhabited by the quote-unquote father of the gods, by the god of the first or golden age, and the idea of the Arctic day, almost without night, was not irrelevant with the eternal light surrounding the immortals. These ideas were still so alive in Roman times that, according to the testimony of Amantius, the bishop of Volterra in Tuscany, Italy, Constantinus Chlorus would lead a campaign in the north part of Britain, confused it with legendary Thule itself, not so much out of a desire for military glory, but to reach the earth, quote, which is closer to heaven than any other, end quote, as he almost felt the divine metamorphosis of the heroes and the emperors at their death. Now these same areas which saw the dawn of humanity contain and preserve the mystery of a primitive tribe of conquerors whose symbol, the axe, reappears in the very Roman symbol of the barbell. These Arctic regions, from Iceland to Greenland and North America, are the same ones over which the Italian wings flew victoriously yesterday in an operation where, regardless of the price, they really wanted to enigmatically associate themselves with the positions of the primordial greatness. This is by elada.gr, and it's translated by me for you from a Greek article. Please leave your comments, and thank you for your support.